everyone, it's Jasmine and welcome back to another video and welcome back to my room. I hope you're doing very well. So today I thought that I'd do a travel Q&A because during my travels to Singapore and Hong Kong I received a lot of questions from you guys, so I thought that today I will dedicate an entire video to answering some of those questions. So let's just get straight into it. So the first question is, how do you get and save money for traveling? And I actually got a lot of these type of questions regarding saving money and expenses and things like that. So as to saving money, I generally just don't spend my money on unnecessary things. So I don't buy a lot of products and things in general. So for example, from makeup to skincare, I don't have a lot of it. And also because I'm trying to aim towards living a more minimalistic lifestyle, this helps me to save money as well. I also like to create a budget for myself. So for example, each month I'll only want to spend a certain amount of money on food, for example, and also some other things I like to do. I like to eat at home when possible, so I don't eat out that often. Eating out actually does add up. I also like to do a lot of DIY myself, so when it comes to cards and gifts I always like to do some sort of DIY. And also I like to set goals for myself. So for example, if I have a trip coming up, I might set a goal of just saving up $1,000 for example. So I always like to stick to that and I'm pretty determined, so I usually always reach that goal. The next question is, do you make an itinerary for each day of your trip beforehand, or do you go with the flow each day? We did make an itinerary for each day way beforehand, but also we did go with the flow as well. So we briefly had an outline of what we wanted to do each day, and usually we always stuck with that, but depending on how we felt, depending on the weather as well, of course, we also went with the flow, so we didn't pressure ourselves, that we didn't feel stressed, and we still had an enjoyable holiday. How do you decide which places to visit and what attractions to see? That is the beauty of Google, my friends. Google is your best friend when it comes to traveling. Just do your research, go on lots of different websites and use a lot of different resources. And also, if you know someone or friends who have been to that particular country, you can ask them for advice as well. Hi Jasmine, when you travel outside your home country, how do you get your phone to work? I think I know what you're trying to say. So I don't really get a SIM card when I travel. We just get a Wi-Fi pocket device and we can get along fine with that. And so far with my experience with Wi-Fi devices, I've used it in Korea, in Taiwan and Hong Kong and Singapore, and it was totally fine. It wasn't expensive at all, and yeah, it helped us. How do you plan for your trip? Things such as booking flights, a place to stay and transportation. I just use a lot of different resources. So booking flights, I always think of the day, of course, when I want to go, what time of the year is best. As for a place to stay, I always consider the location, the price as well, of course, the facilities they have, if they have Wi-Fi, that's very important. Also, I always check the reviews of the hotel as well. And as for transportation, I always like to use public transport when possible because it's a lot cheaper and it's not hard at all. All you need to do when you arrive in the country is to just get the transport card, which every country is generally the same, so you just get a little card and you top it up, so that's pretty easy. We know you have a habit of going to the gym, writing a diary and doing skincare routines. How much of these do you keep up during your travels? So of course when I travel I don't go to the gym, I don't always have time to write a diary, and this is because traveling, it can be quite unexpected, and also I feel like it's just a time to relax and chill and take it easy. You don't always have to follow your routine when you travel, and it's totally okay. But as for skincare routines, skincare is something I always like to prioritize. To me it's very important, so if I can, I'll always take the time in the morning and the evening to wash my face properly and just do some skincare. Do you budget when you go on your travels, i.e. food, shopping, living? Yes, I do, but just very generally, and I don't keep it very strict either, because if I'm very strict with my budget, that will just make me stressed. So as long as I have a brief idea and I keep within the range of my budget, then that's fine. Do you prefer to travel alone or with your family, friends? Why? I like doing both. I honestly loved solo travel when I went to Taiwan, but I do love traveling with friends and family as well because you get to share your experience with someone, you don't feel as lonely, so both. And do you prefer hot countries or cool countries? both as well. Generally when I travel, I guess I like to go to places with warm climate or when it's the summer, but since I went to Hong Kong, that was the first time in a while that I traveled to a place where it was cold, and I actually really enjoyed it because it was a lot easier to walk around and wasn't feeling hot all the time, so I don't really mind as well. And what's the one thing you wish you brought on your last trip? Definitely, hands down, warmer clothes, because Hong Kong was way colder than I expected. It was just cold. That's why I only wore the one jumper that you guys saw throughout the vlog, because it was the only one keeping me warm, so definitely wish I brought more warmer clothes. What tips do you have for traveling with friends to ensure that there is no conflict? Definitely the biggest and best tip I have is to just compromise with each other, listen to each other, understand each other, and just have good communication skills. Of course, when you travel with someone else or a group of people, everyone will want to do different things and everyone will like to go at their own pace sometimes. So you just have to compromise and not get stressed, and the world doesn't revolve around you. So other people will compromise with you and you need to compromise with others as well. So just for example, on one of the days in Singapore, I wasn't feeling that great. I was very tired and I just wanted to get back to the hotel, but Courtney on the other hand really wanted to keep exploring, so we just compromised and I went straight back to the hotel and she went to do her things, and that was totally fine. So yeah, that's just an example of how you can compromise. Please recommend one must go to place or vegan cafes in Singapore and Hong Kong. Singapore, definitely Genesis Vegan Restaurant, and Hong Kong, definitely Green Common. Which hotels did you stay in Hong Kong and Singapore? What did you like about each place and which did you like better? In Hong Kong we stayed in the Stanford Hotel, and in Singapore we stayed in the Strand Hotel, and I liked a lot about each place. In Hong Kong, I definitely really loved the nightlife, especially in Mongkok, and in Singapore I loved how green it was. It was just so colourful. Just, yeah, the colourful architecture and buildings, I loved that so much, and I liked both. I can't really choose which one I liked better. And thank you so much for your comment. How to carve out alone time when you are traveling with someone else, particularly if you're an introvert and need time alone to recharge. How to balance the interests of both people when traveling, especially if you want to both explore different things. So as for the second part of the question, as I already mentioned, it's all about compromising. And as for carving out alone time when you are traveling with someone, you just need to, again, I guess, just communicate with each other, let the other person know that you need some time alone. And for example, for Courtney and I guess we were with each other, of course, 24/7, apart from the time that I was in the bathroom, she was in the bathroom. But yeah, I guess that is one other way you can take time out alone, just to go to the bathroom. And also sometimes we were just in a hotel doing our own things. We didn't really talk for maybe half an hour, and we both just kind of understand and knew that we needed some time alone. So yes, just understand each other and communicate. Since you have travelled alone and also with other people, what is the difference between travelling alone and travelling with someone in your own experience? Greetings from Venezuela. Hello Venezuela! So thank you for your question. So there are a lot of differences, but I think that the biggest difference between solo travel and with someone else is that when you solo travel, you can do whatever you want whenever you want. You can plan your whole day the way you like it. You don't really have to compromise with anyone else. And so yeah, I guess that is the biggest difference. And also when you travel with someone, I guess you just have someone to share your thoughts with, to share the experience with. So there are pros and cons about both solo travel and traveling with someone else, and I like both, as I have mentioned already, I think. Is there anything you don't enjoy about traveling? So I know I'm always positive, and I was saying that I really enjoyed my travels and it was amazing, and it definitely was. But yes, of course there are certain things that I don't really like about traveling. So some examples are, I guess, jet lag, and also it can be very tiring depending on what you do, of course. But for my trip, every day we were walking around 20,000 steps, so that was very tiring. Also the money conversions, I can get pretty confused. So when we went to buy things, we always had to do the conversion on our phones, which took a bit of time, but that's okay. It's just one of those things you have to learn to deal with. Also, something else I don't really like, which I'm sure none of us really like, is the delays and waiting, especially if you miss your flight and you have to stay at the airport overnight. That was one thing that I experienced the first time, but yeah, I guess things just happen, and those are pretty much things that I don't really enjoy about traveling. When you travel, what is the most exciting thing? The food, the culture, the sightseeing, or the people there? They're all exciting to me. I guess the most exciting thing for me is sightseeing, but also the culture is so interesting as well, and the people, especially vegan food. Some countries have amazing vegan food, but all of them. Everything is so exciting, it's so hard to choose. What website do you normally use to purchase your plane tickets and accommodation? So for plane tickets, I generally like to use bestjet.com, and for accommodation, I like to use Expedia or Airbnb. Do you have any plans about traveling to another country soon, and where will it be? Yes, I am traveling again soon to China. I am so excited. I haven't been back to China in 7 years, so I am just super pumped. I was very excited for Singapore and Hong Kong, but I am, to be honest, more excited for China, so I can't wait. How long and how much do you save prior to traveling? I save up for as long as I need to reach my goal for that trip. And how much do I save? Again, it just depends on the trip where I'm going. So for example, if I was going to Asia, I don't need to save up as much as if I were going to Europe, for example, because for me, going to Europe would be more expensive. So it just depends. Usually I'd say minimum is about $1,000 because of the plane tickets, the accommodation, the food, transport, and depending on how long as well, but generally at least 1,000 Australian dollars. Are there any tips you have for getting the cheapest flights and saving as much money as possible? So as for saving as much money, I definitely do want to go into more detail in another video, but as for getting the cheapest flights, I would say booking a few months in advance and always checking and playing around. Also definitely be flexible with your dates, because if you're certainly set on a certain date, you may not get cheap tickets, but if you are just flexible, you can always go on a particular day where the flights are the cheapest. And also just don't be too picky. What is the best part of traveling for you? Deep question. I guess the best part of traveling, the absolute best part, is that it makes me feel so alive. I honestly feel so happy just experiencing a new culture, seeing the people, the way of life. It makes me feel so good and like I'm really living, so I guess that's the best part for me. Next question, I like this one. Do you also hate going to the toilet in the hotel room when traveling with a friend? The real questions. So I guess it just depends on how close you are with that person, but for me and Court are basically like, we're like this, we know each other pretty well, so it wasn't awkward or anything at all. And I also gotta say that in the hotel in Hong Kong, the bathroom, there was one door for it and it was transparent, not completely transparent. You could see like the basic outline of the person. It was very frosted but still a bit transparent, so that was at first, I don't know, I was a bit iffy about that, but we just got used to it and yeah, it didn't really matter. When you travel, do you enjoy just being able to take time away from your family and friends and just to take time to treat yourself and have a little adventure on your own and have a break from your usual surroundings? I definitely do enjoy that. I feel like sometimes it's just important and necessary to take a break from your usual surroundings and the people you're usually surrounded by, because I think that when you do that, you learn to appreciate them a lot more, and you know, sometimes you just need a bit of time on your own to go on an adventure and just to do some spontaneous things. So yes, I do enjoy it every now and then. I also really like this question. As a female solo traveler, what kind of precautions must we take? I've always wanted to travel alone, but as a woman it would be a bit scary to go around the world on my own. Any tips? So as you guys may know, I did go to Taiwan on my own, and for me, I was just very cautious about my surroundings. I was always very aware and alert. So some things I did, for example, were when I was walking, I always knew where I was going. I had a map with me. I didn't do anything that made me stand out so as to not make it obvious that I'm a tourist. I also knew what numbers to contact in case I needed the police or the ambulance. I didn't go to any sketchy or rough places. I always went to places where there were a lot of people, and sometimes you just have to lie, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't like to lie. I never lie basically, but when it comes to traveling, sometimes you just have to. So for example, when I was in Taiwan, some strangers did come up to me and they asked if I was traveling alone, if I was waiting for someone, and I had to lie and just say that yeah, I was waiting for a friend, because that way I felt the safest, and I think that is the safest thing to do. So sometimes you just have to tell a nice lie, but that will keep you safe. What is the most important thing you learned from traveling? By the way, I love your videos and you really inspire me. Oh, thank you. And the most important thing that I learned from traveling, since traveling to Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong and Singapore within the past 12 months, I guess the most important thing I learned was that traveling is one of the most amazing and greatest teachers out there. You really learn so much about yourself, about the world, about cultures, even languages as well. You really learn a lot, and traveling is one of those things that can really broaden your perspective on the world, so that is just so amazing. How do you maintain a vegan lifestyle when traveling? Is it difficult to get all the nutritional requirements when traveling, and what made you decide to become a vegan? So I became a vegan more than 2 years ago for a whole range of reasons. I cannot possibly list them all, but mainly it was for the planet, for the animals, and for my health. And as for maintaining a vegan lifestyle when traveling, you just gotta do your research. So before I go to a certain place, I always research the vegan places there, and also any vegan restaurants or even vegetarian restaurants around my hotel. And then when I get to the specific city, it can always be a bit different. You may find some new vegan restaurants around the area that you didn't know, or you may find some other restaurants that have vegan options or vegetarian options. And when you go to a country that you don't know the language in, always do your research beforehand and learn how to say, I am a vegan, I do not want this in my meal, or please take out the egg, the meat, the fish sauce, or whatever it is. Learn those words. I guess I'm lucky in a sense that all the countries I've visited so far, I can speak the language, so I can let them know. As for getting all the nutritional requirements when traveling, I don't really think about that too much, because traveling is only temporary. It's only 1 to 2 weeks. It doesn't really bother me too much. And I guess in general, as long as you eat enough, as long as you feel satisfied and you're eating mainly whole foods and things like that, it's not difficult to get all the nutritional requirements. Which was your most memorable family trip you had when you were much younger, and why? Well, I guess I am very lucky and blessed in the sense that my family, we have done a lot of traveling in the past, especially within Australia. But I think the most memorable one I've had is our last trip to China in 2011 when I was 12 years old. We did a lot of different things. We went to Shanghai, went to Beijing, and back to our hometown as well, and it was just very memorable. I loved every part of it. And what do I usually consider when I book my accommodation? So I think I have mentioned this before, but just briefly again, I consider the price, the location, the reviews as well, and just the services they provide. So Wi-Fi, if they have a safe, if they have a fridge, and if they have any other facilities around the hotel or Airbnb area. So that was my travel Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you all so much for your questions. I really appreciate it. So yeah, I am back home now. I'm still settling in, and I will still be making videos, of course. I'm just trying to take it easy for now, and yeah, I will see you next time. I love you all so much. Bye.